All right, so I'm back here. New version. Oops, let me get to the right folder. I'm on version 3 now. Version 2 is where we took the logic of the yes-no questions and moved it into a function. We did that because we were using essentially the exact same code, aside from different text in the question in 2 different places in the code. So we now have an abstraction, right? This is an abstract yes-no question, yes-no function. It takes any question, displays a prompt, returns true if they say type in Y at the prompt, and it returns false if they type in anything else. When we looked at this at the end of the last video, you remember that, even if I type in yes, right, anything other than the letter Y is going to get interpreted as a response of no, and that's not really what we want it to do. So what we're going to do is look at this and see how can we add some input validation to this, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is let's actually just check that the answer is no and see what happens here. So I'm going to run this. And shall we use the grenade? I'll say no, seems to work fine. And I'll say Y, seems to work fine. Let's type in something else. And, that was weird, right? It's still, I didn't say no, and it kind of acted like it returned false. But that's not actually what happened there. So I'm going to just put a little print statement in here so you can see what happens. All right, so I'm going to, so if we say yes, I'll say no, and you see it's use grenade is worth false. And if I say yes, it returns true. And we'll play again here. But I'm going to type in some nonsense here and see what happens. And the return type was none. And so what happened to me, right, when I'm trying to check for no, is that I typed in the gibberish here, and this branch of the conditional was not true, so it didn't return true. And this branch of the conditional was not true, so it didn't return false. And we just got to the end of the function. And when a function ends, if there is no return value specified, then it always returns this Python value of none. And so what I'm going to do is go back up here. We don't want this. What we want to happen is nothing. We want to stay in this function. If you don't answer yes or you don't answer no, I just want to go back up and ask the question again. And so what I'm going to do is just take my entire function and put it in a block that's while true, and we'll tab it over. And what I've done is intentionally create an infinite loop here. So what should happen is, shall we use the grenade? We'll just type in nonsense. Okay. And it's just going to keep doing this over and over and over again until I type in a value like Y or N, and now it reaches a return statement. And so one of the things that we're taking advantage of here is a return statement inside of a function. It exits the function immediately. So it doesn't matter that we're in a while loop. As soon as you hit a statement that's return true or return false, this loop is no longer matters. The execution of the program comes back into the main loop where the function was called, and the return, since I typed in no, right, the use grenade, it returned false, and I printed out to check the value there, and you can see then the knight was killed just like it's supposed to. All right, so that's a simple way to make sure that we don't exit the function until we enter one of the specific things that we're looking for as an answer. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that print statement. We don't need that in there. So now let's think about some other things we can do with our input validation. Right? I have a nice little indicator here that you can type in Y or N, but why not allow for some other answers as well. So perhaps somebody playing the game, yeah, I mean, it says type Y or N, but, I want to be able to, maybe I typed in yes, or I typed in no. I want that to be an acceptable answer. Perhaps I typed in a capital Y by accident, right? I want that to be an acceptable answer. So let's look at what we can do here. What I can do is start to chain together other answers that I think might be acceptable. So I can say, or if the answer is equal to yes, that'll work. And I can go down here and I can say, or the answer no, and we can take care of that. And let's see, so shall we use the holy hand grenade? Say no. No also works. Yes works. Okay, would you like to play again? Well, let's see. Yes, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. I'll just say no here. All right. But anyway, we allowed it to take yes and no for an answer. So I wonder if there's anything we can do about. So now we take yes, no, or just Y or N. So let's see if we can do anything about this, right? The capital Y should be fine if somebody types that in. We shouldn't make them re-enter for a silly mistake like that. So I'm going to go back up here, and there's a temptation to maybe do something like this. I'll say or answer equals Y, or answer equals yes. And this line of code is starting to get real lengthy, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, or answer equals. They might have typed in this, right? Because they're all going to be considered different. Or answer equals. They could type it all cute, right? And we want all of these things to be acceptable. And you can see, hopefully, that this is really starting to be perhaps not an ideal solution to the problem, right? So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to write all my code just in terms of lowercase letters. I could do this uppercase too, but I started lower, so we're going to stay there. And I'm going to let the user input their response however they want. But there's a Python function that works on strings called lower. And so what this will do is take the answer string, and this returns a lowercase, a version of the answer string entirely in lowercase letters, and then it'll overwrite the answer. So now, let me get this back lined up right. If I type in yes, it's fine. I can type in no like that. I don't know. Yeah, still works, and it's completely case insensitive now, right? It's capital Y, lowercase n, doesn't matter what I do, right? So let's just, this is a very common approach to this sort of task with case sensitivity, is just code all your logic in either uppercase or lowercase and let the user type in whatever they want, but convert their input to the proper case before you do any comparisons. All right. One more little tweak I want to make to this code, and that is, I don't think this is very Pythonic. All right, and some other languages you probably code it like this, but like if I wanted to start or answer, we want to take. As soon as we want to start accepting more answers. I don't know why we really want to do that. I don't think anybody typed it in, but this line of code starts getting longer and longer. And so there's a better way of handling this in Python. And I'm just going to say that we'll use the in keyword. And if the answer is in, and I'll just make a list of all of the acceptable answers that I have. And so now if the answer is in this set of Y, yes, yup, right, make sure each thing is its own individual quotes, right, and we can accept other answers. I don't really want it to do that. And if I went here in, and we'll make a list there. So this is, I think, a little bit more Pythonic and a little bit cleaner way of doing the same logic. And like you saw before, right? If it's, yup and yep, and you can start to take as many answers as you want now without significant changes to your code, right? So that's, let me get rid of that again, right? So that is how we get some basic input validation in here. And before I end this video, I want you to think about something, right? When we went back to, when I had my version 1, this was the very first one that we were able to play again. And I had this block of code here that, right, so I had this 5-line block of code that had the yes, no logic in the Boolean variable. And let's suppose I wanted to incorporate input validation here. Well, I guess I would need some kind of a loop, so it would keep asking me until I say something valid. So I would have to tab this over, do a loop. I would have to edit all of the acceptable responses here and all the other acceptable responses here. So it'd be kind of a while loop like this would kind of wrap around all this code. And then I'd have to go down here and I'd have to repeat that exact same code again to do the input validation. But as soon as I was able to put my ask yes, no question into a function, I was able to, right, not only reuse the code to ask the question, but I was able to, I'm going to use the word iteratively, right? I was iteratively able to add more functionality to my yes, no function. And I only had to code the input validation once. Whereas, when I was doing it in my original implementation of playing again, I had the code, I had the same yes, no logic in 2 different places, right? And so now I get to reuse code, all right? Not repeating myself, all right? So that, aside from just saving some lines of code here, what I want you to see is by breaking things down into abstract functions, it gives us a really easy way to enhance the functionality of it. And notice how when I was messing with my input validation here, I didn't have to change anything. I didn't even have to look down here or consider how this was working. Right? It gave me a very localized place to work on adding new functionality to my game as well. All right, so I think this is a good place to stop this video. And I've got a few more ideas for some improvements we can make, and you'll see that in the next video.